talk about mixtures and solutions. This is kind of that flow chart that I was talking about the other day that's really useful. Matter is anything that has mass and takes up space. Fun fact, there's only one place in the universe where that definition doesn't fit. It's where the matter has mass but doesn't take up space. Black hole. Everything is compressed down to zero volume. Really cool, really weird. Matter is typically found as a solid, a liquid, and a gas. You might have heard of plasma. Depending on how you define it, there are up to like 12 or 22 different types of matter, but they're really weird and they're usually just mathematical. So we'll just stick to solid, liquid, and gas. Now you need to make sure that you know your transitions between those. We have freezes and melts and evaporates, you know that. But going from a gas to a liquid, make sure you know that that's called condense. That process is called condensation, just like the process of to freeze, that's called freezing. So on Earth, it's kind of cool. You can find solid, liquid, and gas water. Solid is ice, liquid is water, gas is the humidity in the air. That's kind of unusual. On Mars, you only find it as a solid and a little bit as a gas. Mars doesn't have the capability to hold on to its atmosphere very well, so any water that turns to a gas has a good chance of escaping into space and never coming back. So Mars has been losing its atmosphere for a very long time. And that very low pressure makes it so that you can't have liquid water on Mars. Although liquid water did exist. There are dry riverbeds, lake beds, ocean beds. Very cool thing to study. So a mixture is two or more types of matter put together. And typically the way that you're going to separate these is through sorting. So you're picking up little pieces, big pieces. These are all physical separations. Filtration, where you separate out particles from a liquid there. Sieve is, like the screen where you've seen in movies where they'll throw in dirt and they shake it out and the small pieces of dirt fall through and there's like rubies and diamonds and stuff left over. You can use magnets. Some things will float, some things will sink. When you recycle plastic, they will actually chop up the plastic into little tiny pieces and they put it in water. I believe the plastic pieces that they want will sink and trash, like labels and things like that, will float to the top. So that's an easy way of separating out plastics. Evaporation, I'll tell you about one of those. It's cool. Distillation, chromatography, we'll get into some of that. So mixtures can be solutions when one material dissolves in another. A solution, though, cannot be separated by filtration. Mixtures can have visible parts, like when you have sand and water, oil and vinegar in your salad dressing is a good one. Iron and sand is easy to see because the different colors. Some mixtures have no visible parts, and those are called solutions. You put a little bit of salt in water, and you're not going to see the parts. Of course, Kool-Aid is a great example. You can't see the Kool-Aid particles floating around in the water. It just looks good to drink. So let's think about it. I'm going to ask you some questions here, and I want you to pause, think about it before I give you the answer. So a nice way to separate sand and water, if you've got those mixed together, not in separate, like the two beakers there, I don't know why that water is blue. Apparently they got it out of somebody's toilet. So wash your hands. So how do you separate sand and water? Through a filter. You'll get water out one end and sand in the filter. How would you separate iron and sand? Iron is magnetic, so you can use a magnet to separate the iron from the sand. How would you separate a mixture of salt and water? So you have ocean water and you want to separate that water from the salt. Don't you miss that sound? This is going to form a solution, so you cannot use a filter. Answer is you heat the water until it evaporates. The water will go up in the air, the salt will remain. Let's go through here, and you've got some of these worksheets in your notes, in OneNote. So if I am talking about, there's a term called saturated. If I'm talking about a saturated solution, this means that you can't dissolve any more solid material in that liquid. That's typically usually what it is, a solid dissolved in a liquid. There are other ways of doing it. If you add more material, it just settles to the bottom. So you might have seen this when you're trying to put sugar in a drink and you stir and stir and stir and it's dissolved. Eventually, no more sugar is going to dissolve no matter how much you stir. That is called a saturated solution. So once you see that no more material is going to dissolve, you know it is saturated. There's another term called solubility. Solubility is a property. It's something that you describe. Solubility is a property. You would ask somebody, how soluble is it? Well, it dissolves in water really well. Oh, it's soluble. So if something can dissolve in something else, we say that it is soluble. Solubility is also a measurement. You can measure how much dissolves in the liquid. Typically water, we keep talking about water. So there are charts. You can look it up or you can do it yourself. You can actually measure exactly how much will dissolve in that water. And there you go. That would be the solubility of the solid, whatever you're dissolving. So if it's salt in salt water, you can talk about the solubility of salt. There's another term called concentration. Concentration refers to how much material is dissolved in the liquid. So if there is a lot of material dissolved in the liquid, we would say it's concentrated. A dilute solution would have very little stuff dissolved in that liquid. Here are some visuals on what I was just talking about. So saturated talks about how much is actually dissolved in there. So which of these is the saturated solution? So A is saturated because you can't dissolve any more in it. There's stuff at the bottom. You've tried to put more in and it won't fit. Which one is a concentrated Kool-Aid solution? So the fact that it's darker probably means there's more stuff in it. I can't think of anything where that would be the opposite, but there you go. Okay, so we're looking at to see which one is a dilute saltwater solution. Notice they have the same volume but different masses. So a dilute solution has less stuff in it. So the fact that it has less mass means that it has less stuff dissolved in it. So therefore it is the dilute solution. Thanks for coming.